Kyle Sanders. Kyle's been a friend for a very long time. He also was someone that I met on the SEO Book Forum many years past. Obviously, he's been knee deep, and very knee deep on the local side of things for a long time. Even though just like national stuff, he's just been so good at that. Every time we get together, we go to Sakana, we get sushi. So when he comes up to Napa, we're doing more Emotos. You just remember that.
Yep.
Kyle, I'm really looking forward to this. I know you have some local tips that people don't actually talk about. So TJ is going to go ahead and promote your video, and we're going to get rocking and rolling. You're waiting on him. Well, fine, Kyle.
This is going to be one of those insults we use.
Oh, yeah. This is like, okay, what would your insult be? I want to know what your insult would be here. I got a lot of insults for you.
I don't want to ruin them.
Well, I can keep coming up. That's the beauty part about insulting you.
Why would you want to insult me so bad?
Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it.
There's just no shortage of content.
That's also true.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be fine.
Okay.
I'll get you.
When in Rome.
You love that.
I'm co-op. So the reason we're doing when in Rome is because that's just one of the Jim's phrases. Like when he's losing an argument, he'll just throw it out there.
When in Rome.
And then he'll suggest that we should just all go to Maui. And none of these things are, technically incorrect.
Well, now watch. So we can see everyone's comments. Who would like to have a conference in Maui? Why don't you go ahead and go into the chat and say yes or no? That'll be a clear indicator of if we should have something in Maui or not. I'm hoping that someone will say something. Yep, see.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So at least, Michelle Robbins. Yep.
Topher says no.
No.
Okay. And then Jenna says yes. Jock says sure. Cindy says yes, please. What would you pay for a conference in Maui, though?
I think they want it for free.
That's always the problem, though. It's like,
but if we do it virtually from Maui,
okay, sure, we'll go to Maui for you. I'm sure everyone appreciates that. Thank you for sitting on that beach and having a Mai Tai. That really made my day.
Maybe I'll have a lava flow.
Okay, fine. You can have those are actually quite delicious. Kyle's on and muted? Well, then let's cut to Kyle. He's way more important than us.
Yeah. We're just going to banter.
That TJ guy.
Kyle, are you there?
Yeah, 1 second.
Kyle, come in, Kyle.
Oh, he's there.
Yeah, he's there. I feel so.
Gentlemen.
Oh, yeah. Cool background.
Is that vodka?
No, it's not, unfortunately. Actually, so I'm under my gazebo right now at my house, and this came with the house. It's pretty cheap. One thing that happens is that rain gets trapped on the edge sometimes, and then when it's windy, it ends up blowing inside. So my MacBook got wet recently, and I'm down to 2 computers, and the one that had my deck on it just stopped working. I do have some slides ready on this one, but it's not as comprehensive as I would have hoped. But that's fine. We don't really need slides.
You better make
let's see, how do I go? 1 second here.
This is why we pre-plan, right? Still.
What we should do is run OBS to this.
Yeah. Or not.
Because running OBS solves everything in the crowdcast. Kaboom! We got polls going on. We got 2 polls. Who wants to see Jim and Joe insults? Oh, crap.
Yeah, see. It's perfect.
I'm going to vote because I actually want to do that.
No, we'll do it. We'll do it tonight. For sure. When are you going to invite us over to the pool, Kyle?
You're welcome anytime.
That's all I wanted to hear. This is excellent news. Excellent news.
I'm having issues with this accessing my screen here.
You should just be able to click on yourself and go share.
Actually, I can mouse over.
All right, is that working?
Yeah, we're getting it. It's coming up.
Okay, cool. So I'm doing this. Joe had asked me to do a talk on local, and there's kind of a lot that has really happened. I mean, what the fuck seems to be the theme of 2020, right? And, my January was looking was rolling into January real smooth, and then things just really ratcheted up. In local, you had the COVID thing, and it just seems like, man, things just keep getting worse. But what I'm going to cover is kind of some things that have happened, how to address some of the issues from those, and then, you know, some tools and tactics to help you improve local performance, and then really how we evaluate, how we kind of go through and improve local sites for clients, as well as some other businesses we have here. It's about me. I run an agency in Austin, Complete Web Resources. I kind of got into it really when people started getting penalized on the first round of Penguin. People were like, hey, what do I do? I was running SEO for my own e-commerce dropshipping businesses, slinging like pharmaceutical grade vitamins and just spamming so hard. And I got nuked. So I was like, okay, well, yeah, sure, pay me, I'll help you. And I really liked doing client service work. So we ended up getting, you know, a lot of these people in Austin, and just really started winning markets to the point to now we own several significant stakes in like home improvement companies, which is really, really fun. I've been doing SEO for about a decade. I don't really talk at a lot of conferences, but there's not a lot of stuff I haven't seen, at least in the local space. So 2020 recap. Like I said, January was pretty smooth. But one thing that we really started noticing in February was kind of a shifting of maps results. You would have all of these weird listings, you know, something that had been stable for a really long time. Or somebody who had ranked really well for all their head terms for a long time, they would be at like the bottom of the stack, and you would have these weird irrelevant listings. For example, like a dentist, you know, something like city dental, city dentist. You would have a bunch of listings with no reviews whatsoever. A TMJ doctor, completely unrelated. And that seems to be going in and out really throughout February. It seemed like two sets of results that would shift back and forth. I know, because every time it happened, we have this dentist who, anytime anything happens, he has my phone number and he calls me. It's the worst decision I made in terms of client management this year. So then, as we rolled into March, and you know, the U.S. kind of started a lockdown. One thing that happened was there was a large amount of Google My Business listings getting suspended, and I think I don't really know what signals they use, but there were a lot of false positives. There were a lot of business listings that got nuked, and then on top of that, you had India shutting down, which is where you know, most of the support staff is. So getting anything reinstated if you weren't quick about it became a huge problem. There were also a lot of duplicate listings that were created. I don't really hang out at the local search forums that much, but I haven't really seen people talking about that. But it's definitely a significant problem for some people. And if you have duplicates out there, you can actually end up getting and these are duplicates Google created, right? They just like appeared, materialized in March. What can end up happening is that your main listing, despite how much history or anything like that you have, can get suspended, and then they basically tell you, you know, kick rocks. You got to go claim the other one. Reviews started not going live, and then, you know, there are just some issues with COVID-19. There's the new COVID feature for Google My Business. Another thing that I think impacted local a lot, especially if you build links or buy links, is that Amazon cut affiliate commissions, which is pretty significant, because what that does, in the way that we look at it, is all of those people who weren't really taking sponsored posts or guest posts, whatever, are now probably needing a little bit of extra income. And so link purchases through a variety of networks are definitely something that there's just a lot of opportunity there. And then, you know, the May update happened. I don't have all the answers, but there are some things that we noticed for all of our for the people who did drop, although most of our clients did pretty well on that. So obviously the maps volatility, you had the poor Google My Business listings, the shifting result sets. One thing that we noticed is that certain keywords, certain brands got treated as keywords. So for example, if you were like Austin Dental or Central Texas Heating and Air, what ended up happening is that those got treated like a search query rather than a brand. So in addition to that, so for example, on this dentist we had, I mean, they were the only one in the city. They were really like the first dental practice. It's a single doctor practice, and all of a sudden, all of their competitors started showing up for their branded terms, which is not great, obviously, and they have, you know, pretty significant branded search volume for a local business and into the hundreds per month. And that's definitely something you don't want to have happening. And if you do client work, you know that people get real pissed about that. So the way that we solved that problem, and I don't know if this is by guidelines. This is actually an example of something I did this morning, but what you have here is you have the doctor's name associated with that. So you do basically business name, doctor's name. And that seemed, even though the citations didn't have that, that seemed to temporarily solve the problem. And then we went in and updated everything, got all that stuff re-indexed. We also added the city to the Google My Business listing name temporarily. That's against guidelines, and you can actually get your listing suspended for that. If you have a lot of experience going through that, getting listings unsuspended, that's not really, it's kind of a pain, but for the most part, you really have to have keywords in the Google My Business name to compete in a lot of spaces, which is unfortunate, but that's how we solved that problem. I had mentioned the duplicate listings from all of the large-scale suspensions. So, there were a lot of garage door people that got hit, lead gen sites, broker sites, and things like that. But there were also a lot of totally normal businesses that got hit. And I don't know, again, what if they tried to use machine learning or other signals besides how many edits had been submitted on something. But there were a lot of listings that got suspended. It created a lot of chaos, and I don't think that went as well as they anticipated. One thing that did happen, though, is we noticed duplicates starting to show up. And in this particular case, this is a tree company that we do work for, and I noticed it just said duplicate in there. And I was like, huh. I went and looked, and there was the same listing, same images, same reviews, all of that had been duplicated. Ours that had, 7 years of history, was getting posts regularly, all the reviews are there. It was listed, we couldn't access it, right? We can't do anything. We would have to verify it. Now, you're not actually going in and verifying your old listing. You have to go in and claim this new one. Now, that doesn't sound like that bad of a deal if everything duplicated over, but the problem with this is, tree surgeon or arborist was the primary category, and the duplicate had it changed to lawn care service, which completely tanks your rankings for like any tree care terms, right? So that's a huge pain in the ass. Then you have to deal with it sitting in pending review forever. Speaking of pending review, I mean, there's stuff. So this is a company we run pay-per-click for. For whatever reason, they had their business name in all caps. It's been under review for I don't even know how long. And we can't seem to get certain things like that pushed through without having to submit a support ticket. So stuff like that is really, kind of slow down your ability to get in and make quick wins. But, if you have to go through the Google My Business support channel, that's what you have to do. I do recommend that if you have listings that are particularly spammy, listings with keywords in them, or you're just being, now you see people doing, they'll go in and they'll get a DBA and their business name will be like keyword of city. And they have it set up like a franchise so that you can get maps listings everywhere. If you're doing that, which works really well, I suggest putting all of those Google My Business listings on their own island, meaning that each one is going to have its own Gmail account tied to it so that if one gets flagged, you don't lose all of them. This is an example of something that's it's awesome because it's our client, but it's also just really stupid. The results clustering is just still not great, and we still see a lot of this happening. So what I'm going to do is kind of go over a few ways you can get around this in some ways that we've been able to pop things despite all of the hectic issues. One thing that came out of this was the COVID Google post. So that appears way higher up on your knowledge graph listing, and it also appears higher up just in general when somebody clicks through from the map pack, that information is on there. So we recommend updating that fairly regularly, and you can also use it to include marketing messages. If if it's a business where you're in a lot of contact with people, you definitely want to have some information there about no contact delivery available, or social distance service available, or something like that to make people feel more comfortable. You definitely want to make sure all of your hours are updated. We saw a client that reduced their hours and people showed up to the store. It was a furniture store, a mattress store, and man, these people got pissed and went in and dumped reviews on all of their one-star reviews on all of their locations across town. So while that's generally not something that's going to happen in most cases, it can happen, and it's if you changed hours, you want to make sure that that's updated. It's kind of ridiculous how many people don't know that. Let them know you're open. And if you're going to include a pop-up on your website that says, hey, we're here to support our community during the COVID-19 crisis, make sure it does something. I've seen a lot of websites have these COVID-19 pop-ups. Your message is great, but you're spending money on pay-per-click sending people to the page. It throws them a pop-up, and then there's no, in a lot of cases, there's no link to contact you or schedule an appointment. I see a lot of websites doing, there will be a learn more button or something like that, and it takes them to their COVID-19 blog post, which isn't optimized for conversions at all, and it's completely useless, and you're actually hurting. You're going to hurt your conversions and your ability to generate revenue if you do that. One other thing that happened, like I said, a really, really big issue was that reviews were not going live. They are now, but there was a period of time from March until pretty recently, where any new reviews that you got weren't getting pushed through to Maps. I don't really know if if Google provided an official answer on it. I just assumed that that it was because they fucked up so bad that they needed their team in India to kind of review everything, which would explain why certain things are taking so long. But now that reviews are going live, we had people on our review automation software, which is just an internal software that we use at our agency. Basically what it does is you drop in a client or customer's name and phone number and shoots them a text message. They have the ability to, it says, hey, we'd appreciate it if you left us a review. They can leave, they can do thumbs up or thumbs down. And we can also set the threshold to where if it's 3 stars or 2 stars, we intercept that feedback, or the client intercepts that feedback. So if there's, if you're an AC company and you have a lot of jobs, this will if somebody's not satisfied and that slipped through the cracks, it gives you the ability to intercept that feedback and avoid potentially a negative review. Also called review gating. I believe that's against Google's guidelines, but honestly, I don't really give a shit. It's important to protect your reputation, and you also, if you're running a business, you want to make sure that you're doing right by your customers, and I think that's a totally fine way to, catch somebody who's upset and turn it from a negative review into a win. Automating this, particularly if you deal with like home service clients, is it works the best. We found that with if you're using something like Service Titan or a similar program like that, Service Titan actually has its own review program, but the best possible way to run review automation, especially if you're providing home services, is as soon as when the invoice is generated, that we're assuming that's the last point of contact between the field worker and field technician and the customer, you want to hit them with an automated SMS review request 15 minutes later. If people are satisfied, most people well, you're going to get some that aren't going to review you anyway, but most people will still leave you a review if you batch it out at the end of the day. But we found that we have a significantly higher take rate by about 20% if you do it 15 minutes after an invoice is generated. Now, obviously, reviews are super important, but review velocity is also a ranking factor. And then this image here on the right, Google's starting to put #1 rated in maps. So when you see that, or at least when, particularly in like home improvement and things like that, that's something that you should strive for. And again, that's only going to drive up click-through rates on a lot of those maps listings and help the rankings in maps. So I definitely suggest doing review automation if possible. Like I said, we built our own program. It's only for clients. I don't really want to deal with supporting a software program like that. If possible, intercept the negative reviews. If you're not comfortable with review gating, that's cool too. A couple solutions. Nick's program, Sell Engage, can really handle whatever you do. I'm not sure if it does review gating. Another one is Broadly. Broadly works really well. It's also $250 a month per location, which is pretty expensive, but it's definitely effective. So I don't know if they have price breaks. If you're multi-location, you start getting into the hundreds of locations, it gets real expensive, but that's also an effective solution. I'm not a big fan of really any other products that are out there, Bird Eye and things like that. I just don't think that they work as well as our internal program, Sell Engage or Broadly. Google My Business posts. So one thing that a lot of people don't do, there's more people doing it now, but you still don't see people really using Google My Business posts. And it's kind of a dumb feature, but even doing it, even just once a week, we'll typically see like a 1 to 2 position increase on keywords. It's also free advertising in the knowledge graph, so you should be using it. You want to track that stuff. Anything where people are clicking back to the site, you want to track that with campaign URLs using the UTM campaign URLs. Include keywords in the post. A lot of that stuff will get pulled in based on the search query to the Google My Business results, the 3-pack on the search engine result page, right? And a really, really great way to automate this is with a program called Local Viking. I tried to get a discount code for everybody, but the guy was too slow. So we use this tool very regularly. We schedule all Google My Business posts with it, and it has a ton of cool features. So what you can do is you can set up your core posts, and the core posts are going to be, hey, we're the best, whatever, because XYZ, right? You don't necessarily want to have, you don't want to treat it like a social media post so much as you do, this is why we're the best. And you want to build that out in Local Viking, and you go in and you can set it recurring, once a week, and just really build those up, and they'll continually run perpetually. So you want to kind of have a mix of branded Google My Business posts that, hey, this is why we're the best, and then you want to have stuff that targets keywords if possible. So, if you're a tree guy and there's been a storm, you want to be, you want to be running the Google My Business posts around tree removal, tree trimming, storm damage from like trees falling on your house, things like that. And you can VAs as long as their English is good, can hammer this out pretty easily. And then once it's really built out, you can just let it run. It also has a feature that's pretty cool where if you do the Google My Business website, which is basically just a website of all of your posts, it lets you daisy chain them together and add in the previous post search URL. And you can actually build up those properties. And then since it's a Google property, you can send whatever links you want at them, and they'll typically rank for your branded terms, which can be really solid for ORM. Another thing that it does is keyword tracking at a granular level. we use Local Viking for this. There are other solutions, but I think it's really, really important to know where you rank and for what terms in what part of town. If you just use a basic rank tracker, what it does is it's going to pull from like whatever Google serves up as the city center, but that's not actually what you end up seeing on the ground, especially with so many people sharing their location data. So it's really, really important to know where you're ranking, and then if you're not ranking, like, figure it out. If it's like a maps result, you're just too far away. Like, for example, the Orange 14, that's in downtown Austin, right? This is for a personal trainer. There must be, I don't know, 40 gyms down there, maybe not that many. There's a lot, right? A guy in South Austin has absolutely no chance of ranking there. But so we wouldn't really want to be too worried about that. And then if I did want to rank for something like Personal Trainer Austin, where we're not going to have the ability to rank due to proximity, you want to create a page. I would do an interior page with some spammy review markup, and then try to rank that for the head term. Again, this is through Local Viking. They rolled out scheduling for this, which is pretty good. Another really good program, if you're interested in doing this, is Places Scout. I haven't used it for a while, but their reports end up spitting out like animated GIFs of how rankings have changed over time, which is super useful for keeping track of where you're at. You can also build your own via the Places API. It's not it's a lot of calls, but it's not super expensive. Citations. I mean, if you do local, these are a necessary thing. I think that people hype up the importance of citations a little bit too much. I don't think that they really matter as much as they used to. You do want to be consistent across all of them. Some of the big people, the more well-known people in local SEO, at least a while ago, used to say that there's, after you kind of bang out the main ones, that there's really like a depreciating return. I don't really think about it like that. I want Google to know that the address is correct. I want it to match what's in Google My Business. If I'm keyword stuffing anything in the domain, I want everything, for the most part, you want to have like the legit business name across all of the citations, and then tack on, if you're adding a city at the end to help rank, you want to tack that on later. And then if you're setting it up like a franchise location where it's like keyword of Austin or keyword of Dallas, right? You want to have those consistent all the way through. If that's the naming conventions that you're using. A lot of people that have citations don't really have them indexed. A really good way, you can kind of throw the main ones on an interior page on your site, submit it in GSC. Those will get indexed. We like to build out additional like Web 2.0 properties, WordPress, Tumblr, whatever. All I'm really doing there is going in, setting it up, adding the business name, address, and phone number, a little bit of text, a link back to the site, embed the map, and then I'm going to go in and add all of the second and third tier sites that actually link back to a site. So while the NAP data from kind of the main citations might not matter after a certain point, there's tons of these directories, and if you're in a competitive space, picking up 250 to 300 referring domains to a site or even to a given location page can be really powerful. And it's a really good base of like neutral links. Your anchor text isn't too nuts. Most of it's going to be the raw URL or website. And so we go in and we add those to all of these different Web 2 properties. And once those are done, we don't really do anything with them beyond that. You could send some link spam to the Web 2s to pump them up, but for the most part, once they're indexed, what they do is they keep those citations indexed. Whereas if you don't have something linking to those, they tend to fall out of the index over time, especially the second and third tier sites, because the architecture tends to be pretty shitty. No one goes there. They're really bloated, and I'm sure the crawl budget is pretty low for that stuff. For For niche citations, these are going to be like, industry directories, roofer directories. Bright Local has a list on their site. You can also use, they have a nice tool where you can look at your competitor citations, and you knock out your core list, Foursquare, Yelp, Yellow Pages, etc. But beyond that, you can use it to find a bunch of weird niche links that all of these other people have. And we'll also set up, like, for example, if I have a roofer that I'm trying to rank, I want to know what all of the roofing people have in terms of citations, but I'm also going to look at, like, related businesses. What do the window guys have? Most roofers do siding, but, I'm going to look at, like, what do all the siding repair companies have? What about the guys that install gutters? Any movers or anything like that, and you can really pick up a lot of like niche local links. You can use Ahrefs for that, but this does a really good job of like finding small stuff. And again, on a lot of that niche citation stuff in those niche directories, a lot of that stuff won't index right away. So again, you can throw it on the Web2s. It sounds like you're creating a little bit of a footprint, and you are, but we've never had any problems with it, and as long as you have the logins, if you ever did have an issue with it, you could just disconnect that stuff. One thing I don't see anybody doing at all, and I know because I'm the only result for SEO when you look it up, is getting your Apple Maps page indexed. Let's see here, and as well as Nextdoor. So here's an example of Bright Local, right? So these are mostly citations that a lot of people have, but this will give you an idea. This is where you get the niche citations from, and those are going to be under the competitor citations. I think they changed the name of that a while ago. It used to be potential citations, but whatever. You want to use that and get all of anything you can. If it's not super relevant or it looks spammy, maybe skip it, but for the most part, this kind of stuff isn't really going to have a negative impact on your site. It's only going to help you if you get it indexed. So on the Apple Maps thing, so most people don't know, but there's all of these listings like this that exist. Google can't really crawl them, so there's not really indexed. I think there's only like 1,500 pages on Apple Maps. That link from that page is followed, and they index very nicely. The reviews pull from Yelp, which, if you have most people in local that have a review problem, it's going to be with Yelp. But this doesn't show review markup in the search results. So if you pull it in via schema, half the time, maybe even more than that, it's going to outrank the Facebook page, and it'll be right behind Yelp. So it's really good for ORM. To actually get to this link here on this page, Matt, you have to go through kind of a sneaky, it's not that sneaky, but you're going to open up the Maps application on a MacBook. You don't want to do it from your phone. You've got to do it from a computer, and you're going to copy the link. It's going to be a really, really long link, and you want to edit it down to that. So /place/ AUID. That's what you need to get it indexed. And then you throw it in the same as schema, submit through GSE, and it'll pull in and get indexed. Ranks super easily. It's a really good link. And if you have, if you have shitty Yelp reviews, you probably don't want to be pushing that up for branded search, but you can send spam at it and it ranks like right away. Nextdoor, these rank really well, really good for ORM, also a followed link. A lot of businesses don't have these claimed. You should, one, because people will hit you up in mentions on that. It's a little bit hard to monitor Nextdoor stuff, but in terms of just the actual listing, another reason you want to go in and claim it is because you can still go into somebody's Nextdoor listing and claim it and change the phone number. It's really easy. So you want to go in there and claim it and make sure you have that locked down. You can also add this to same as schema, and it'll also rank for your branded search terms. And it looks pretty good if you have a lot of recommendations. And the other thing I like about these is that there's no, on Apple Maps and on Nextdoor, there's not a bunch of other businesses listed on there for your branded search stuff. we're starting to add this for every client. We don't see anybody doing it, and it just works really well. Review markup. So I was looking at this random site I saw, and you can now get review markup on the homepage, which you haven't been able to do, as far as I know, until very, very recently. So this Dunham Law client, well, they're not a client, they're a client competitor, but they've got H-review on the homepage, which is, if you do local, you know that's huge, especially if you're using review markup. Now, Google came out and they didn't want people to do self-serving reviews a while back, and if you want to do that, that's fine. We figure out a way to get it for everybody, just because it helps with click-through rate. It helps rankings stick. Like if you're halfway up the page for something and you have review markup and nobody else does, it kind of tends to just rank on its own, honestly. Increases click-through rate. And your risk of manual action on this is pretty slow. We've gotten them before. Basically what happens is you get a little love note in Search Console, and you just take it down, submit the reconsideration request, and you're good to go. We've not seen anybody lose organic rankings. The only thing we've seen is that it just doesn't show. Before they said you can't use self-serving reviews, we saw it drop off for some people, so we started loading it at the page level in the header. And there's a WordPress plugin for that makes it pretty easy to do page level or location specific schema at the page level. A lot of people screw this up, and they'll go in there and they'll have, if you look at somebody's homepage, maybe they have 4 locations. They have all of those addresses like on the homepage, when the homepage is usually tied to the main metropolitan area. So, around Austin, we have Round Rock, Cedar Park, Buda, Kyle, all of these like smaller cities. It doesn't make sense, I don't think, to have all of that schema data on the homepage that's tied to an Austin Maps listing. So we break that out and do it at the page level, and it works real well. You can also do, if you do product review markup, like the way you would do it on an e-commerce store, you can spam that in there as well. It works. If you have clients, they're going to get notices that say that there's an error, that you didn't add pricing data, price information, but it still displays without that. Actually, it's an error or a warning, I can't remember. I'm not exactly sure. I just noticed this homepage thing very recently. I saw somebody on Twitter was also posted something that you can also throw FAQ markup on the homepage as well. So you can really build that out now. I don't know how long that'll last, but if you have clients or you're in competitive markets, throw it up there and see and just keep submitting until you get something popped. This is the 10 out of 10 is a little bit weird because it's an H review. I would probably try to do something maybe a little spammier, like product review markup, which we're testing, but I haven't gotten that to show yet as of right now. But either way, you want to be having this on all of your pages, especially interior pages. It just really helps click-through rates. And once a constant thing in locals, you're always trying to outrank Yelp, right? Google will dial something up, dial something down, and that's kind of an ongoing battle, is building links to internal pages so you can be on top of Yelp, because 1, you don't want to pay their extortion ad fees, and 2, you want to get all of the search traffic you can, right? Having this definitely helps, and it makes on the promotion side of things, when you're building links to pages, it makes it a lot easier to stick rankings. They seem to stay longer. Using emojis if you can, again, increases CTR. This is a homepage. Helps rankings stick, helps you stand out. You want to optimize it for mobile. If you can make it look really nice on desktop, it'll truncate the number off. So when you're doing something like that and including emojis like that, you want to go in and double check what it looks like on mobile. This guy Rubbish Inc., who's also owns an SEO company and is a friend of mine, looks like he just updated that. But most people aren't adjusting that for mobile that are doing this. So it's little things like that can really make it stand out. When somebody's looking for a dumpster runner, they're probably looking right away. They've got a job booked, or maybe like during COVID, people people are losing their minds because of the lockdown, and they just got to get rid of a bunch of shit in their house. So if you can get this to show, and again, Google doesn't show this all the time because they grab content from your site, but if you can get it to show and you can address the search query, it's definitely worth doing, and it also helps CTR. In the cases where, and it's really hard to track when they're displaying your actual meta description versus the content on your website that they're just like pulling in. You can kind of, if you keep an eye on what they're pulling in, you can also go in there and add in like emojis to that content, and that'll get sucked in too, depending on what they're pulling in. Sometimes it'll be a bunch of different sections, particularly on a desktop search. So it can look a little ridiculous if you just have all these check marks in your website content, but it's worth doing. I would also say that, depending on the brand, you may or may not want to do this. Like, I wouldn't be doing this for probably a hand surgeon or anything like that. Dumpster rental company, totally fine.
Now your slides work. What the heck?
You finished.
Were they not working?
No. We were texting you. It's okay.
No. All right. So like, it's totally cool. It's like the content's really, really good. We're gonna get slides, and we're gonna put them in the DMO. So you're gonna have access to this because it's really good and it's actionable.
Yeah.
So you should pay attention to what he was saying.
I would even say too, like we'll post it in the DMO for you, Kyle. Just get us the file, and then we can follow up with questions and stuff in the DMO.
I think it was stuck on the title slide for whatever reason. But
man, I'm sorry.
That's okay.